They say grandfathers are supposed to protect you, but mine destroyed me. I can still feel his breath on my neck when he whispered those words. I was only 6 years old. Today, at 78 years old, I'm finally ready to tell the truth about what happened in that house. I'm 78 now. He's long dead, but sometimes I still wake up hearing his voice. My mother was a single parent. Just the two of us against the world. We had nowhere else to go, so we lived with my grandfather in his old creaky house at the end of a dirt road. The walls were thin, the floors groaned under every step, and the air always smelled like mothballs and wood polish. To everyone else it was just a house. To me, it was a prison. My grandfather was a respected man, a deacon at the Baptist church. Every Sunday, he stood at the pulpit in his crisp black suit, Bible in hand, preaching about righteousness and protecting the innocent. The congregation adored him. The women called him a godly man. The men shook his hand like he was a saint. And me, I had to sit in the front pew in my starched dress, smiling like the perfect granddaughter, while my skin crawled. Because no one knew what happened when the church doors closed. No one saw how his eyes followed me when my mother wasn't looking. How his voice, so warm and fatherly in public, turned low and sticky sweet when we were alone. "Come here, sugar," he'd say, patting his knee. "Granddaddy wants to talk to you." And I'd go, because what child disobeys their elder? It started small. A hand lingering too long on my back. A goodnight kiss that lasted seconds too long. Then, the whispers. He'd lean in so close I could smell the peppermints he always chewed to hide the liquor on his breath. "You're my special girl," he'd murmur, fingers brushing my hair. "This is our secret. If you tell, God will punish your mama." And I believed him. Because who was I, a scrawny little girl, to question a man of God? My mother worked double shifts at the textile mill. She'd come home exhausted, her hands raw from the machines, and collapse into bed. She never saw how he'd slink into my room after she was asleep. How he'd sit on the edge of my bed, his weight making the springs whine, and whisper things no child should hear. "You're prettier than your mama," he'd say. "Don't you want to make Granddaddy happy?" I tried to tell once. My second-grade teacher noticed I flinched when men came too close. She pulled me aside and asked, "Does someone at home frighten you?" But the moment I opened my mouth, I heard his voice in my head. "God will punish your mama." So I just stared at my shoes and shook my head. The next Sunday, he made me stand beside him as he donated extra to the collection plate. "See how good I am," he whispered, squeezing my shoulder too tightly. "No one would believe you." By the time I turned 9, I knew the truth. The devil wasn't some monster under my bed. He rocked in a chair on the porch, humming hymns, and waited for the house to go dark. At first I thought it was normal. Doesn't every grandfather give his granddaughter special hugs? The kind that lasted too long, where his hands would slide down to my waist and squeeze just a little too tight. I was 6. I didn't know any better. He'd pull me onto his lap after dinner, his breath hot against my ear. "You're my favorite," he'd murmur, fingers stroking my hair. "Don't tell your mama about our little talks. She wouldn't understand." And I didn't tell. Because what was there to tell? He was my granddaddy. Granddaddies were supposed to love you. But then the whispers started. Late at night, when the house was quiet, he'd tiptoe into my room and sit on the edge of my bed. "Shoo," he'd say, pressing a finger to my lips. "This is our secret. If you tell anyone." His grip would tighten on my wrist. "God will punish your mama. She'll get sick. It'll die. And it'll be your fault." I believed him. Course I believed him. He was a deacon. He knew God better than anyone. So I stayed quiet. I let him hug me too tightly. I let him whisper things that made my skin crawl. Because if I didn't, my mother would die. And it would be my fault. I didn't understand at first. Not really. I was just a little girl. I thought all grandfathers smelled like peppermint and sweat. I thought all grandfathers made their granddaughters sit on their laps in the dark. But then, the night he came into my room. It wasn't a hug this time. It wasn't a whisper. His hands were different, rough, hurting. And for the first time I realized this wasn't love. This was something else. Something bad. Something that made me want to scream. But I couldn't. Because if I did, my mother would die. It wasn't just the hugs anymore. It was the way he'd watch me like I was something he owned. The moment my mother's car disappeared down the road for her night shift, his chair would creak as he stood up. "Come here, sugar," he'd say, patting his lap. His voice was syrup-sweet, but his eyes were hungry. I didn't want to go. My stomach would knot up, my legs shaking like a scared rabbit's. But I went. Because what choice did I have? He was bigger, stronger, and he had God on his side, or so he said. He'd make me sit on his lap, his hands too tight around my waist. "You're my favorite," he'd whisper, lips brushing my ear. And then, his hands would wander, under my dress, over my knees, here. I'd squeeze my eyes shut, praying for it to be over, praying for my mother to come home early. But she never did. The whispers got worse. "If you scream," he'd hiss, fingers digging into my skin, "God will strike your mama down. You want her to die." And I'd shake my head, tears burning my cheeks. 'Cause I believed him. I believed every word. He was a deacon, holy man. Who was I to question him? One night, he didn't wait for me to come to him. I was in bed half asleep when the door creaked open. Froze. The moonlight spilled across the floor, and I saw his shadow, tall, looming, blocking the doorway. "Shoo!" he whispered, crawling onto my bed. "This is our secret. God is watching." I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I just disappeared. Somewhere inside myself, where he couldn't reach me. Where his hands, his breath, his whispers, they couldn't touch me. But my body remembered. Oh God, my body remembered. I tried to tell someone once. My second-grade teacher, Mrs. Wilkins. She had kind eyes and always wore flowered dresses. I thought maybe she would help. I stayed after school, my hands clutching the straps of my book bag. "Mrs. Wilkins," I whispered. "My granddaddy, he..." But the words stuck in my throat like hot tar. "How do you say it? How do you describe the thing with no name?" She knelt, patted my shoulder. "What is it, sweetheart? Did he scold you?" I nodded fast. He touches me. Where it's bad." Her smile froze. Then she straightened up, adjusting her dress. Now, she said, voice stiff. "Don't disrespect your elders. Grandfathers love their grandchildren. You must have misunderstood." Misunderstood. That's what they always say, isn't it? When the truth is too ugly to face. The mother who didn't see. My mother noticed I was afraid of him. How could she not? I flinched when he reached for me. I hid behind her skirts when he walked into the room. But she just smoothed my hair and said, "Don't be shy, baby. That's your granddaddy. He loves you." Love. That word tasted like lies. But I choked it down. Because if even my own mother couldn't see it, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I deserved it. One night I worked up the courage. I crawled into her bed, my whole body shaking. "Mama," I begged. "Can't we live somewhere else? Please." She turned to me, her face tired in the moonlight. "Baby, we got nowhere to go. And family takes care of family." Then she kissed my forehead and rolled over. The snoring started 10 minutes later. That's when I knew. No one was coming to save me. The system that didn't care. At 12, I told the school nurse I was having accidents at night. Wetting the bed. Nightmares so bad I woke up screaming. He sent a note home. My grandfather read it first. That night, he locked me in the basement for lying. Told my mother I was seeking attention. She believed him, of course. She always believed him. After that I stopped trying. The world had made its choice. And I was just a girl. I was 9 years old when the whispers stopped being enough for him. It was past midnight. The house was silent except for the old grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. I was almost asleep when I heard it, the soft shuffle of his slippers on the hardwood. My body went stiff under the covers. Maybe if I didn't move. Maybe if I pretended to be asleep. But he didn't care if I was asleep. His hands, they weren't gentle this time. No peppermint whispers. No special hugs. Just pain. So much pain. I bit my tongue until I tasted blood. Clutched my doll so tight her stitching ripped. And through it all, his breathing. Heavy. Right against my ear. When it was over, he smoothed my hair back. God loves obedient girls, he whispered. Then he left. Just left me there. Icky. Hurting. Alone. I bled for 3 days. First I thought I was dying. Maybe that would have been better. I washed my underwear in the bathroom sink, scrubbing until my hands were raw. When my mother asked why I was walking funny, I said I fell off my bike. She bought me a popsicle and told me to be more careful. He watched the whole thing from his armchair, murking, 'cause he knew. He knew no one would ever believe me. That night something inside me broke. Not just my body. Something deeper. The part that still believed in good. In God. In love. But here's what he didn't understand about broken things. Sometimes they get sharp. I was 14 the last time he tried to touch me. He thought I was still that scared little girl. But I wasn't. Not anymore. That night, when I heard his slippers shuffling toward my room, I didn't freeze. I didn't cry. I reached under my pillow and pulled out the box of matches I'd stolen from the kitchen. The moment he stepped inside, I struck one. The flame flickered between us, lighting up his face. Those sagging jowls, those watery eyes. Touch me again, I said, and I'll burn this house down with both of us in it. For the first time in my life, he looked afraid. He never touched me again. The whispers that never left. But the damage was done. The whispers followed me, in the way I startled when men stood too close. In the nightmares where his hands were still on me. In the mirror, when I scrubbed my skin raw and still felt dirty. I left at 16. Took a Greyhound to the first city I could afford. Worked 2 jobs. Slept on floors. But it was better than that house. Better than his breath on my neck. I thought distance would fix me. But some wounds don't heal, they just scar over. He died when I was 23. Stroke, they said. The church gave him a hero's funeral. I didn't go. But that night, I stood in my apartment bathroom and screamed into a towel until my throat bled. For the little girl who couldn't. For the mother who didn't listen. For every good man who gets away with it. The whispers didn't stop that day. But they got quieter. And one day, I realized I was louder. I'm 78 years old now. My hands are wrinkled, my hair gone gray. He's been dead for decades, buried in the same churchyard where he once preached about God's love. But some nights, I still wake up in the dark, heart pounding, because I swear I hear him. Just for a second. Just long enough to feel 9 years old again. The room smells like peppermint. The sheets are too tight. And I have to turn on the light to remind myself. It's over. He's gone. But the body remembers what the mind tries to forget. Why she speaks now. I'm telling you this, not for pity, not for tears, but because right now, somewhere in the world, there's a little girl lying very still in her bed, listening to footsteps in the hallway. She's biting her lip raw to keep from crying. She's praying to a God who feels far away. And she thinks she's alone. Baby girl, if you're listening, you're not. I'm here. And I know how heavy the secret feels. How your stomach knots when he says, don't tell. How you stare at your mother at breakfast and wonder how she doesn't see. Tell anyway. Scream anyway. Even if they don't believe you, especially asterisk if they don't believe you. Because the truth doesn't need their permission to exist. Asterisk. I lived. Not just survived, lived. Fell in love. Raised children who never feared the dark. Held grandchildren who'd never know the weight of a bad touch. And when my granddaughter turned 9, I gave her a whistle to keep under her pillow. For monsters, I told her. She laughed, thinking I meant fairy tales. Let her keep believing in pretend monsters. The real ones are my burden to carry. If you're hearing my story and your skin is prickling, if your hands are shaking because those whispers sound too familiar, listen to me now. This is your sign. Tell someone. The teacher who scolded me is retired. The rules have changed. Some people will believe you. Run if you need to. A women's shelter. Friend's couch. A bus station with $20 and a backpack. I slept in a church pew once for 3 nights. It was colder than that house, but I've never slept more soundly. You deserve to be safe. Not tomorrow. Not after graduation. And if no one's told you today, it's not your fault. It was never your fault. Grandfathers should be safe. Mine wasn't. But I survived. Not because I was brave, I was terrified. Not because I was strong, I was shattered. But I put myself back together. And every scar became proof. Even broken things can still hold light. So tell me in the comments, just one word, just me. If someone in your family broke your trust, you're not alone. And if you're still trapped in that house, in that silence, this is your match. Light it. Burn the whole damn thing down.